Hey, what's going on, guys? How we doing? Matt Antonelli here, answering your guys' questions today. Today's question was sent in. The question was, what is an MLB offseason like? What type of things do you do? What's the training like? What's the schedule like? And so we'll spend a little bit of time here today going over that. The offseason is different depending on how old you are, what level you're at. If you're in the minor leagues or the major leagues, it's different for a whole bunch of different reasons. So let's kind of break it down. We'll go back and look at my career and kind of go through year by year and talk about some of the different things that you have to do in the off season. Sometimes the team requires you to go certain places, stuff like that. So first year that I played, 2006, I was drafted, finished my season. Once the season is over in September, sometime in September, typically first-year players go to what's called Instructional League. So for the Padres, Instructional League was at our spring training complex in Peoria, Arizona. And Instructional League is very similar to spring training. The only difference is it's going to be just mostly young players, right? So really young players, first-year players, maybe some second-year players, maybe some injured guys will be there to get some extra work in. But it's scheduled very much like spring training. So you're going to go about 6 days a week. I think they gave us Sundays off. Usually going to go early in the morning. You're going to go in early. You're going to do all your work. You're going to get your, positional work in, get all your reps, and then you're going to take a little breather, and then you're going to come back out and play usually a game. Typically, you're going to play against the same teams all the time. So when I was with the Padres, we shared a complex with the Mariners, and so we're going to play their young guys a lot. You're going to play mostly the teams just kind of around you. Play the Rangers a lot. The bus rides or you take van rides actually for games. They're really short. Usually we didn't go over a half an hour, maybe 40 minutes was the longest one. That's the good thing about Arizona is all the teams are kind of really packed in. And so that's what first-year players are doing. So you're basically going there. You're just kind of learning how to be a pro. You're learning, the way that team, some of their philosophies, the way they want to teach you offensively, defensively, pitching-wise, all that stuff. It's kind of a crash course for those first-year drafted guys. Once you're done with that, usually do that for about a month and a half or so. So I think it was like the end of October. You go home and then you're free. Then you're able to do really whatever you want from, the very end of October, November, December, January, and February. You're basically on your own. So it's the first time in most players' lives where it's their career, right? No one's going to hold your hand and say, okay, you have to go hit today. Okay, you have to go work out today, right? When you're in college or, high school, maybe not so much, but when you're in college, someone's always holding your hand and telling you what to do. When you become a professional, then you have to act like a professional. You have to be able to do things on your own. You have to be able to schedule your own workouts. You have to find a place to work out and lift. A lot of guys get, a personal trainer or something like that to help them along the way. And so, it's up to you. So what I would do is I typically, first couple years, I actually did the lifting on my own. So, it was actually me and one of my good buddies that also play baseball. We would do our workouts together. We did our own program. I usually would take a little bit of time off from hitting. You play a long season. Usually I would take about a month or so off of swinging, and I would just really work on my body, try to get bigger and stronger and faster. And then I'd start hitting probably in probably December or so I'd start to hit. And I'd start off just a few times a week, and then I'd build it up until, when you're getting close to spring training, then you're going basically every single day. But again, it's really on your own. So that's kind of how my first off season worked. My second off season, that season I played in High A in the California League, and then I got moved up to Double A in the Texas League. Had a really good season that year. When that year ended, I played in the Arizona Fall League. So the Arizona Fall League is kind of like, it's like almost like an all-star league for minor league players. Typically younger players that have moved up pretty quickly. Mostly guys that are probably in there wasn't a lot of AAA guys, mostly AA guys that are still pretty young at the time. I think I was 22. You get some high A guys around that age also. And so you're going to go to Arizona and you're going to play in a league with all these really good players. You get matched up with, I forget how they do it. You take, probably like 4 or 5 guys from each team. You have your Padre guys, and you'd have who was on my team? I think I was with the Marlins, Padres, Phillies, Dodgers, and who was the other team? I can't remember. But you kind of you get bunched together, and they make kind of like these little all-star teams, and you play like 40 games or so. Really, really good competition. A lot of those guys that play in that game end up getting called up at some point, usually the year after. So I got called up the year after that. Most of the guys that I played with in that league were called up at some point. So it's guys that are kind of right on the edge of breaking through, but usually not older players. So it's not going to be somebody that's kind of been playing for 5, 6, 7 years, mostly younger guys. Really, really good league. Somewhat boring league in some ways because there's no fans at the game. It's really weird. You have a lot of good players and you have like 6 people watching the games. And you do it after a really long season. So you play 100 and almost 60 games in the minor leagues. You got 30 games in spring training. So you played almost 200 games, and then you go and you got to play another 40 games. So it's an interesting dynamic, but really good to face some arms. As a hitter, you're going to face a lot of guys that are basically almost major league ready, that are going to throw really hard. So it's a great league to play in as far as development goes. So I did that. That same thing ended around like November, and then I went home and I was on my own again. And so you do your own thing. And I had a similar schedule that year. After that, the next 4, 5, 6 off seasons, usually as you become an older player, you don't go to Instructional League, you don't go to the Fall League if you've ever already gone to it. So the following year, I played in the major leagues that year. I got called up. When that season ended, the year ends later. Usually, you play basically until October. Playoffs start in October. And so October, I go home. And that was the first year that I started to work out with somebody. It was a guy that used to work with the Padres before I got there. And so I was recommended that I go, give it a shot and see how it worked. And, really hit it off. And that was my first time where basically I think I went 4 days a week. They'd write the program up for me. It'd be me and a couple other minor league players. And we'd basically work out in a small group, like 3, 4, 5 of us. And that's kind of how we did our workouts as far as keeping our body in shape and working on our speed and our agility and all that stuff. And then I would still continue to do my own hitting on my own. So, I find a place to work out. Usually I'd give lessons at a facility in the area to keep busy. And I'd also, do my working out there, do my hitting and my fielding and my throwing, and kind of keep that going until, again, spring training starts. As you get older and you start going to major league spring training starts earlier. So I think major league spring training, I would report like February 10th, maybe 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th. I think somewhere in there is when I would usually head out. Minor league spring training, I only did 1 year of minor league spring training, but then you go out in like March something, so it's a little bit of a longer off season. So when you finally move up a little bit and you're in big league camp and you play in the major leagues, the off season's a little bit smaller. It actually feels like it goes really, really quick. The off season's like 3 or 4 months, but it flies by. It's interesting how fast it goes. So again, that's kind of how the off season works. The other thing I failed to mention is, there are some guys that will actually buy houses down south, out west, so that they can work out all year round. So a lot of guys will go, they'll get houses in Florida or Arizona, or Vegas is a really popular place. There's a lot of, it used to be called Athletes Performance. Now it's called, I don't know what it's called now, but there's these big complexes that will work out athletes all year round. They're in Arizona. They're, in the warm weather places. A lot of players will go down there, get houses or apartments, work out there, be able to field ground balls all the time, be able to get outside. I always came home because I live in Massachusetts. I always came home and did all my stuff inside. So that was the one interesting part for me, is when I went outside in February or March, I hadn't been outside since October, right? So I did all my work indoors. Which in some ways is good, because I did a lot of working out. I did a lot of work on my body. I always felt like I came into spring training, at my strongest, fastest. I always felt great going into spring training. But baseball-wise, I wasn't able to do maybe as much as some other guys were able to do down south. But, my family was up here. My wife, or my girlfriend at the time, then fiance, then wife, was up here. And so I always just came back up here. I never bought a house or moved to any of those warm weather climates. So that's one thing players do. But again, let me know if you have any questions. Hopefully this kind of clears it up. Trying to think if I forgot anything else as far as plays. I did actually forget one thing. So one thing you'll see with older players also is that they'll go to winter leagues. So, guys that have experience in the major leagues, there's really good winter leagues in Mexico and Venezuela and the Dominican, and a lot of players go there to continue their development, to play really good players in the major leagues. A lot of players go there, guys that kind of, AAA players, guys that can't really stay in the big leagues or having a tough time getting there. They get paid really well, so guys will go and make an extra. I don't remember how much they get paid, but you could get paid as much as I think $10,000 to $20,000 a month, something crazy like that, depending on how good you are. And so a lot of players would go and play during the winter. So you basically almost end up playing all year round. You play your full season, and then the season ends, and you go to the Dominican or Venezuela or Mexico, wherever, and you just keep playing. You play another 60, 70 games throughout the winter, and then that ends. You go right to spring training. I always thought that was crazy. I feel like my body would have definitely broken down if I was playing, 250, 300 games a year. But some guys loved it, and there were even big leaguers, guys that, like Miguel Tejada, and a lot of big leaguers that from that part of the country, they'd go play winter ball. They play a whole big league season, and then they go play winter ball all year. Those guys are it's amazing how much baseball they would play. I had an opportunity to go play a couple years, and unfortunately I kept breaking my hand or getting wrist surgery, so I was never healthy. My last 4 off seasons, I think, I was coming off surgery every single one. So every year, the plan would be to go play winter ball, and then I'd break my hand. And then the plan would be to go play winter ball, and I'd get wrist surgery. And the next, it was plan to go, and I'd get wrist surgery. It happened every single year. I think I got 4 surgeries in a row, I believe. And so I never got a chance to go. But that was one thing that I was going to do later in my career. I just never had a chance to do it. So now I think I covered everything. So again, thank you for the questions. I appreciate you guys writing in. Let me know if you have any more questions in the comment section below. Trying to get to as many of the questions as I can for you guys. Please subscribe to the channel if you've not done so already. Give us a thumbs up. I'd really appreciate that. Share the video with all your friends. Check out our Instagram page, Antonelli Baseball, and our Twitter feed, Antonelli9, where I'm posting videos all the time for you guys. Check out the description box below, where I have a bunch of links to books I've been reading that I find really interesting. Also, some training tools that we use with all of our players. Check out our website, AntonelliBaseball.com. It is being built right now. We had some issues with it, transitioned over to a new company that's going to build us a brand new one. So it might still be down, but check it out when it gets back online. Learn how to work with us and how to be part of our teams. And that's all I got for you guys. Thank you again for watching. I appreciate it. Good luck with your seasons, and we'll talk to you later.